Do you ever find yourself overwhelmed by the guilt of the past, or even more anxious over the unknowns and fears of the future? Me too. Hi, I'm Kelsey, your spiritual fitness coach and a recovering worry wart, but I'll explain more about that soon. My husband Justice, another spiritual coach you may recognize, and I recently welcomed a young foster child into our home. I was prepared to love and provide for this child for as long as we were blessed to have them in our home. What I was not prepared for was the amount of fear, worry, and anxiety I was going to allow into my mind and heart through this process. Worry was stealing my sleep and peace, and fear was feeding me lies of unworthiness that I accepted as truth. I realized I needed more tools to combat my fears than what I was currently equipped with. So I started to pray the Psalms over my life and my expanding family. The psalmist is a writer who is no stranger to fear, worry, and brokenness. 3 things that I was already exhausted by the time I made my morning coffee. I was so ashamed of how I was allowing fear to consume my life. But as I began praying the Psalms, I began to see the compassion and reassurance of God through scriptures like Psalm 94:19, which says, "When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy." This verse reminds me that even when I have become a captive to my worries and anxiousness, God's comfort is able to bring me peace and joy. Psalm 56, 3-4 says, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" The truth is, when we are afraid, we all put our trust into something. Maybe it's, when I'm afraid, I put my trust in my money. Or I put my trust in doctors. I put my trust in my relationships. To fill in the blank yourself, it is going to take quiet, vulnerable time of reflection to see where you turn to first when adversity comes. For me and my anxious tendencies, I was putting my trust in my own abilities, and we already talked about how that turned out. It is a daily battle for me to put my trust in Jesus first, instead of exhausting all of my other options and then turning to Jesus. When I choose to lay my fears and worries at Jesus' feet in prayer first, rather than as a last resort, I am met with a relief that only God can provide. I am growing to realize that releasing my fears and worries to God is in many ways an act of humility. I am humbly coming before the Lord with my shortcomings and brokenness and asking Him not just to fill in the cracks, but to recreate me into something better. Recreate me into someone who puts their trust in God to the point that they are not afraid anymore. That is what I had to do with the life of the little one who had entered my home. As I started to release my fears and worries to God, I noticed my prayers began to shift. No longer were my prayers coming from a place of fear or anxiety, but from a place of gratitude. My prayers were no longer only full of fears for the future of this little one, but they were now full of gratefulness of our time with them. Gratefulness that God loves them more than we ever could, and gratefulness that God's love and protection flows so much further than my own walls. The psalmist wasn't joking when they wrote about how God's comfort can turn our anxieties to joy. So today, when you feel anxious, read and recite Psalm 56, 3-4. Say it with me again. "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" Now, put your trust in God and win today.